Hi, this video is from interview.com. Interview.com is the job portal. In this video, I'm going to talk about transactional annotation in Spring. It's a very big topic I'll try to cover, and I've written code to explain how exactly it works. First of all, transactional annotation. So it belongs to Spring framework, and there are best practices. You should not mark a private method as a transactional, and it should be at the service layer. It should be at the it can also be at the class level. If you apply at the class level, all the public methods will be automatically applied. So here I have given, for example, in the persist hotel, it's a public method and I've given transactional. So this is the best practices. And say for example, if I remove this and from this method I call a local method, then I place on the local method the transaction, it will not work. It should be on the entry of the public method, not internally. Internal methods it will not work. Okay, so and one more point is, you should always invoke the method which is marked transactional from the, you should use the auto-wired object. That is, you have to create an object. You have to get the object from the bean container, Spring container. Say what I'm trying to say is, you can't do this and expect transactional to work. See, this object, if you are trying to create on your own and if you are expecting transaction to work on this method, it will not work, because whenever you get a bean from the Spring container, it does a proxying interceptor. It will create the interceptor based on your class or a bean. So you cannot create on your own object and expect transaction to work. It will not work. Okay, so these are the two things. First of all, you should get from the Spring container, because they are going to do something behind the scene. Spring is going to do something behind the scene, and it should be on the public method. And actually speaking, there will be a wrapper method on top of this. Spring creates it, and this will be the target method. Okay, so please remember, this is the target method. On top of this, wrapper method will be created by the Spring. Okay, then in the wrapper method, what exactly they do is they begin the transaction, then they commit the transaction like this. Say for example, here begin transaction, then here end transaction, commit the transaction. So this is what they do behind the scene. Okay, I just want to show you a picture now so that you can understand in a better way. So when you call the Spring container to give a service bean, so what they do is they create a proxy. So you're calling the proxy, the caller invokes the target method. Then after the target method is done, that means whatever persistence or whatever DAO operations that you're doing, DB operations that you're doing will be in transaction, because AOP, the proxy method, will have the transaction committed or rollback. Okay, and the results will be returned to the caller. So this is what happening behind the scene if you mark a class or a method with the transaction. Okay, so let's go to the XML file. So we have the transaction manager here. So Spring will look for bean ID with transaction manager. We are using Hibernate transaction manager, and for the demo purpose I'm using Derby database. So let's see what is these are steps. First, Spring retrieves the transaction attributes, that is this attribute. Okay, and then it gets the transaction manager from the Spring container, and the transaction attributes, propagation, isolation, read only, timeout. I didn't mention anything, so it will be default to, it will have the default values. The transaction is created by the underlying entity manager. The target method is invoked. The target method is invoked means this is the target method. Okay, after returning from the method invocation, the transaction is committed in the wrapper or proxy method. Okay, when using the transactional annotation by itself without any parameters, the propagation is required, read only flag is set to false, the transaction isolation level is set to read committed, and the transaction will not roll back on a checked exception. So these are the conditions it will work by, because I didn't give any parameter. So this is how it's going to work. So I have created already a table. Let's run this code so that you can understand. I'm going to clean this. I'm going to start this debugging. So we are going to load the XML file. So now the XML files are loading. Okay, we are going to get the bean from the, so we are going to persist the hotel object and we are updating it. So looks like, can you see this, the SQL queries are executed and we are trying to update as well. So yes, so let me show you the SQL results. So we have inserted a row in the database table. I am using Derby database behind the scene, backend database, and I have used successfully, I have persisted successfully hotel in the this table, okay, using transactional Spring annotations. Hope this video is useful. Thank you and all the best.